Great, thank you. So yes, just a little bit about Liz. Some of you know her, but we know we've got some new people. So Liz started her education and training 25 years ago with a degree in biochemistry, followed by a diploma in nutritional therapy and a master's degree in nutritional medicine. During her career as a nutritional therapist, she supported people diagnosed with cancer and led the nutritional teams of two cancer charities. While she recognises the importance of a healthy diet in healing, she has come to realise that a more holistic approach is needed that includes people's emotional and spiritual issues. This awareness of mind, body and spirit led her to focus on the heart. In the last 10 years, she became a heart math coach, helping people connect to their energetic heart through resonant breathing and coherence. She is also trained in the emotional freedom technique, EFT, and matrix re-imprinting, and has created her own model to support emotional and physical healing that fully engages and utilises the power of the heart. She calls this heart matrix therapy. I can't think of any more qualified person this evening to take us on the journey into the ancient heart. Knowledge that is relevant to us personally, but so obviously relevant to the world today. So Liz, please take it away. Thank you.
And welcome to all of you, those that have been with us before and know the Awakening Heart Collective, and those of you, and I think there's quite a few who are new to us. I want to say thank you to the Science and Medicine Network who have sent out details of this presentation because I think it's brought in a few new people who maybe hadn't heard of us before. So thank you to them, and thank you to all of you for joining. I'm really honoured that you've given up time this evening to come and hear me speak. And I'm a little bit nervous, especially after that very, very clunky start. This is normal speaker nerves, of course, but I'm also a little bit nervous because I feel that this is such important information that I'm going to be sharing, and it's powerful information with the potential to transform lives. And so powerful, in fact, that a lot of this information has actually been hidden away from the average man for many centuries. The mysteries of the heart only revealed to an elite few. But things are changing. We live in unique times, and long-held secrets of all different types are coming to light at this time. And with regards to the heart, I'm certainly not the only one sharing this information. My Awakening Heart colleagues, Claire and Peter, and also Louise, who's not with us tonight, are sharing such wonderful information about the heart. And many others are also speaking about it at this time. And all of those that I know who are doing this work feel that it's almost their duty to share this information, because it is so vital that we connect with our heart and we understand our hearts in these challenging times. I believe, as I know my colleagues do, that it's only through understanding the heart that we will evolve and raise our consciousness. So let me go on to the next slide. So the heart is mysterious, infinitely mysterious. And I believe a part of it will always remain mysterious, just as life itself. We're never going to really understand every little thing about life. And that's a good thing, because having some mystery is what inspires us to seek and to learn and to grow. But tonight I'm going to discuss some of the information that the heart does feel ready to share. And as I said, some of this information has been reserved for an elite few until now. So I wanted to begin by just talking a little bit about some of the people who have inspired me. Now, there's a very, very long list of people that I have learned from and who have inspired me and who have helped me understand the heart. They come from all historical eras, all parts of the world, all cultures, and all spiritual or religious faiths. And as I say, there are many of them, way too many to list tonight. But I did think that I would choose just five teachers who have been hugely influential to me. First of all, because I would like to honour them. But secondly, I would like to give you a sense as to where some of the information that I'm going to be sharing has come from. So first of all, I've been a member of the Theosophical Society for several years, and its founder, Helena Blavatsky, is, I would say, one of my great teachers. For those of you who don't know, the Theosophical Society brings people together to study the ageless wisdom on which all religions and philosophies are based. So Rudolf Steiner was a theosophist for some time before he founded his anthroposophical movement. And this man, who was an absolute genius, spoke lots about the nature of the heart. So of this list, the only one still living is the incredible teacher, Drunvalo Melchizedek. You may or may not have heard of him. But the information that he is sharing is amazing. And he's written several books that you will be able to find online. He's also, if you search on YouTube, you can find some videos with him speaking about the heart. And he's done some online courses, some of which are available through the Gaia channel. So I highly recommend you seek out his work if you're interested in what I speak about tonight. So another of these five teachers that was born in the 19th century and was teaching around the turn of the century, which was a very potent time for this powerful information to be re-emerging into human consciousness, was the Indian sage Ramana Maharshi. His teachings on the heart are incredibly beautiful and have always resonated deeply with me. Again, I recommend you check out some of his writings. And finally, the one more than any other who was sent to this world to share the teachings of the heart is Jesus Christ. Whether you have a belief in him or not, I don't align myself with any particular religion, but I do have a connection to the teachings of Jesus Christ, and I will be talking about some of those this evening. So, there's lots to discuss. I hope I'm going to manage to stay on track with the timings. So let's begin. And I'm going to start by talking a little bit about sacred numbers, specifically the number 3. And you'll see why in a moment. So we live in a 3D universe with the physical, observable space defined by 3 dimensions: length, width, and height, which allows objects to exist and move in space. And to us humans, as we exist now in this physical world, 3 is probably the most profound number of all. 3 is the first number to form a complete shape, which of course is the triangle. And as such, it represents the creation of something new. It also symbolizes the fundamental cycles of life: birth, life, death, beginning, middle, end, past, present, future. To the ancients, the number 3 was considered as the perfect number, the number of balance, completeness, perfection. And we still believe and feel this today. For example, in design and storytelling, items grouped in 3s are more memorable, satisfying, and effective. All spiritual traditions contain triple deities or concepts of Trinity. For example, the Christian Trinity, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, and the Hindu Trimurti, consisting of Brahma, creator, Vishnu, preserver, and Shiva, destroyer. And if we strip everything back to this original wisdom, the original wisdom on which all spiritual faiths, if you dig down deep enough, all spiritual, all religious faiths are based on. If we strip everything back to this original wisdom, that's sometimes also called the ageless wisdom or perennial wisdom, we find that in this world we inhabit, this world of duality, new creations appear when we have a coming together of spirit and matter. Spirit being represented by the male aspect and matter by the female aspect. This is a fundamental truth of the world we live in. And so there is another triad, one that sits behind the first one, and this can be referred to as the absolute triad. This shows us that all manifestations in this world come from one place, the oneness. This oneness, which is sometimes referred to as that, or the absolute, or even God. But these are just names for something that ultimately is beyond our comprehension and so is indescribable. And in the very beginning, what manifests from this oneness is space and motion or action. And if we lay these triangles over one another, we create a six-pointed star or a hexagram. And this is one of the most important symbols across all cultures and faiths. For example, the Star of David in Judaism, representing connection with God, and the Creator's Star in Christianity, symbolizing the 6 days of creation. What it also represents more generally is the forces of heaven moving downwards and the forces of earth moving upwards. And sometimes it's shown with a dot in its center. For example, this is known as the Shatkona in Hinduism, which represents the harmony of heaven and earth, with the central dot, Bindu, symbolizing the focus of creation. Let's go a little bit deeper into some of this. And yes, this is meant to be a blank screen. And let's start again with the absolute, or God. I tend to use the term the absolute. And we can think of this as the ultimate essence. It is, however, as I said, indescribable and unspeakable. And as Madame Blavatsky says, it is without any relation to manifested finite being. And without any relation to manifested being, and without any attributes whatsoever, this can only be described as nothingness and depicted by a blank page. Now, this is so beyond our physical brains and our minds and comprehension that in order to get any sense of it and reflect on it in any way, we need something to grab onto. And so in order to bring the notion of the absolute into a discussion of metaphysics, it is depicted as a central point. So this brings that nothingness just slightly down a level into something that we can begin to comprehend. And sometimes that central point is shown with a circle around it, a shape that is known as a circumpunct. Funny word. The circle with the central dot is one of the most ancient symbols known to man. It's been used by several religions and represents oneness or God. From the central point, oneness, there emerges duality at the start of all life, and this forms the Trinity. From the beginnings of time, the wise ones have told us that all creation emerges from this oneness, a single point, and they have told us that eventually it will return back there. This is a quote from Madame Blavatsky. The universe is contained in ovo, in the first natural point. And if you're wondering about in ovo, this is Latin for in the egg and refers to the latent, unmanifested state of the universe or consciousness before creation. The cosmic egg or world egg is a widespread mythological symbol representing the universe's origin, where a primordial egg hatches to create the cosmos. This ancient idea that all creation emerges from a single point resonates very much with the Big Bang theory. Georges Lemaitre, I know one of you on this call is calling from France, so forgive this awful pronunciation, but Georges Lemaitre, the Belgian physicist and Catholic priest who first proposed the Big Bang theory in 1927, theorized that the universe expanded from an initial extremely dense primeval atom, as he called it, or cosmic egg. His work correctly predicted the expansion of the universe before Hubble's observational data that came later. These single points from which all emerges and returns, Madame Blavatsky didn't just place them at the beginning and end of time. The Secret Doctrine, her masterwork on the origin and evolution of the universe, maintains that these layer centers, as she called them, are present throughout the whole period of manifestation and at all levels of scale. She also said that these centers were more of a state of condition rather than a mathematical point, which ties in with the 0-point field being described in modern physics, which is the lowest energy state of a quantum system that is always present even in a total vacuum and from which all matter originates. So coming back to these single points, which, by the way, also resonate with singularity points at the center of black holes described by modern physics. They have been called life centers by the mystic and researcher Christopher Holmes, who's done a lot of work verifying theosophical teachings through science. And he describes them as the points through which the life principle flows. And this is a quote of his. The Secret Doctrine suggests that all living cosmoses or suns on different orders of scale have such 0-point Liar centers. These centers are the means by which lower dimensional physics, material and energetic systems and processes are produced and informed by a higher dimensional metaphysics. I like to call these points myself creation points. And we can think of many examples in life. For example, the nucleus at the center of the cell, which houses the DNA, and so is vital in the creation of that cell. The nucleus of an atom containing protons and neutrons, which make up the physical matter of that particle. And the sun at the center of our solar system, providing the light and warmth which allows for the creation of life on our planet. Now, in case you're wondering what this all has to do with the heart, I'm now going to move things forward a little bit and start considering the heart. I wanted to give you that background on how life emerges from the nothingness into physical reality, because as you're going to learn, this has a lot of relevance when it comes to the heart. So I'm going to begin by talking about the human body. And I'm going to put it to you over these next few slides that for us as humans, it is the heart that is our creation point. So we'll start by considering the human body and in particular its energy system by looking at the chakra system, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. So this image shows the 7 primary chakras. There are more chakras in our system, but these are the 7 primary ones. And chakra is a Sanskrit word meaning disc or wheel. And these discs, they spin and they spiral energy and they form energy focal points as part of our subtle energy system. I'm not going to go into too much detail about the chakras and the particular ones, but just to say that we have 3 lower chakras. They are the root, the sacral, and the solar plexus. And they relate to the physical material realm. And then we have 3 upper chakras, the throat, the third eye, and the crown. And these relate to the transcendent realms. The heart chakra sits in the middle, coloured in green there. And this is the connecting bridge between the 2 realms. I'm going to come back to the chakras a bit later, specifically talking about the heart chakra. But first of all, I want to move on and discuss something that maybe, because I'm sure you all heard of the chakra system, maybe you haven't heard of the assemblage point, which is another very important aspect of our human energetic system. And it's another connecting point in the human energy system. So the assemblage point consists of a central vortex of energy at the very point where the human energy field connects to the physical body. It's considered to be the epicenter of an individual's life force. And when it's correctly aligned, it's located exactly at the point of the heart chakra and is very closely associated with the heart chakra. However, what's really interesting about the assemblage point is that it can actually move, and it can be moved as a result of intense emotion and trauma. And if it does move, then the energy field has to shift along with it. And this changes the way that the energy flows throughout the body and has an impact on our physical, emotional, and our mental health. Now, the assemblage point is the point where all of our experiences in this lifetime are assembled together. And this creates the lens through which we view life, the lens through which we perceive life. And if the assemblage point gets moved, this can have a very powerful effect on how we view life. There are a few practitioners around the world who are trained in shifting the assemblage point back into its correct position, and this can be done through using powerful crystals. And there happens to be someone that does this work very close to where I live in Devon, and I have experienced this process, which was, I feel, very profound. So maybe you're already beginning to see that the heart takes the central position in our body, but there's more to tell you on this. Ancient teachings across many cultures speak of 3 wisdom centers within the human form: the head, the heart, and the hara. The hara is the Japanese word, and it relates to the gut, but also it can relate to the reproductive organs as well. Now, these wisdom centers, in traditional Chinese medicine, these are known as dantians, which is a term perhaps you're familiar with. And these are key energetic centers, but they also show their importance on a physical level. As you may or may not know, not only does the head have a brain, but the heart and the gut also have neurological centers that we can think of as brains. So each of these wisdom centers have their own set of neurological cells and pathways. They have their own brain. And with regards to the heart, its little brain contains around 40,000 neurons in total, as well as neurotransmitters, proteins, and support cells. All those things that would be found in the cranial brain. And what's particularly fascinating is both the heart brain and the gut brain are capable of processing information independently of the cranial brain, and also they possess short-term memory capabilities. So I want to look at these wisdom centers in more detail, and there's quite a lot on this slide, but we're going to start with the left side of the table first. And we're going to start at the top looking at the head, the wisdom center of the head. And this is what we would consider the male aspect. This male wisdom center perceives and processes using thoughts, and it draws on the quality of the intellect, that being our logical reasoning. I'm going to jump down now to the bottom and consider the hara, which is the female aspect. It's associated with the gut, as I said, but also the reproductive organs. And it perceives and processes using physical sensations, drawing on the qualities of instinct, instinct being the lessons we've learned from very ancient times that we carry in our genetic code, and also ancestral memory. So we've got the head, the male aspect, we've got the hara, the female aspect. And the heart in the middle is where the male and female aspects meet. And the heart perceives and processes through emotion, drawing on the qualities of feelings. And if we're distinguishing between emotions and feelings, I would say that emotions are the fast, automatic physical reactions to stimuli, whereas feelings are the conscious interpretation and mental labeling of those reactions. So yes, the heart draws on the qualities of feelings, also imagination and memory. So this is a nice, neat way to view the wisdom centers. However, there is overlap and they do interact. And particularly, there is overlap with the heart. Although we tend to think of the heart as the emotional center, and that is true, our ancient ancestors understood that the heart is not only a place where our emotions live, but there's a part of our mind that also lives in the heart. For example, courage is very much associated with the heart. In fact, the Latin name cur means, spelled C-O-U-R, means heart. Courage is very much associated with the heart, also determination, discernment, and hope. All linked to the heart, and yet all of these have an element of will attached to them. And will is, of course, a reflection of strength of mind. So it's been known for a very long time that the heart is associated in some way with parts of our mind. And then there's also the link between the heart and bodily sensations. Research shows that when our heart's energies are coherent, then we have an enhanced ability to tune in to our bodily sensations. This is termed interoception. That's our ability to tune in to our bodily sensations. So there's a link there between our bodily sensations and our heart as well. So the heart does overlap when it comes to this table. And really, we can say that the heart is not only where the male and female aspects meet, but it's also where other aspects of the wisdom centers meet. I'm going to come back to this slide in a moment to talk about the other columns, but I just want to talk a little bit more about the duality in the heart. And on a larger scale, not just talking about the wisdom centers, but on a larger scale and also symbolically, the heart is where the two sides of any form of duality come together. And this is a list of some of the most important dualities in life. And as you'll see, they are associated with either the feminine or the masculine. And these putting these in these categories is again relates to very, very ancient wisdom. So the feminine aspect has always been more related to the physical body and matter, whereas the masculine is more associated with the mind and the brain. The feminine being the left, associated with the left, and the masculine the right. The feminine with circles and curves, the masculine with the right, with a straight line. The feminine with darkness and masculine with light, and so on. I won't read down the whole list. But really what I want you to understand, if I move on to the next slide, is that the heart sits in the middle of all of this, connecting and integrating the two extremes. The heart in our modern society is often reduced to the feminine, softer, emotional aspect of who we are. But that is a false view of the heart. It's what the heart has been reduced to in our modern times, but it's not the full truth of the heart. The full truth of the heart is that it also contains the masculine aspect of strength and power. And if we talk about the geometrical aspect, and we should always consider this as geometry, sacred geometry underlines and informs all life, then when we combine the feminine circle with a masculine straight line, we get the spiral. A spiral goes round, but it also has forward or backward movement. Now, you may know that spirals are everywhere in nature because life force itself moves in a spiral fashion. And therefore, it's no surprise that the heart, which speaks to the very nature of life, is very much associated with spirals. But that is a bit of an aside for tonight. So I'm going to come back to this table now. And so far, we've been focused on the left side of this table. We've been talking about the everyday use of the wisdom centers. But each has a deeper hidden side to it. So we're going to move over now to discuss the higher aspects of these wisdom centers, again, starting at the top with the male aspect, with the head. And the higher aspect of this wisdom center is the pineal gland, which is sometimes referred to as the third eye. And this is a tiny pine cone shaped endocrine gland located right in the very center, deep in the brain. And the key function of the pineal gland is to help us use light to regulate our body's cycles. And in doing that, it produces the hormone melatonin. The pineal gland has long been regarded as a gateway to inner wisdom, enabling sight beyond the material world. And like the heart, it's been regarded as another bridge to the spiritual realms. So coming back to this table, I want to jump down now to look at the higher center of the hara, the feminine aspect. And this is the center of gravity of the body, which is located in the pelvic region, just a little bit lower than the navel. And I've actually put there womb, which is something that I have sort of intuited. So other people may not agree with me here, but I have a sense that in fact, perhaps it's the womb that is the very center of this Hara Wisdom Center. Now, I know that not all of us have a womb, but I believe this is more of an energetic imprint rather than a physical womb. So I think whatever gender we are, there is that imprint of the womb within us. And so, yeah, I'll come back a little bit on that in a minute. But now let's go to the middle, the heart, which is where, as I say, the male and female aspects meet. And what is the higher center of the heart? Well, it's actually the center of the heart, the very center of the heart, which has a different, more refined quality than the rest of the heart. And it's often spoken about in ancient spiritual literature. And so, again, we'll come back and talk a bit more about this later. But this very center of the heart, which is sometimes described as having a light there, is, yeah, it has a more refined quality to the rest of the heart. Now, what is fascinating is that all three higher centers have something in common, and that is that they all resemble in some way and have been associated with the pine cone, which sounds a bit strange. But yeah, I don't know if any of you have come across this, but all cultures, across all cultures and throughout the span of recorded human history, pine cones have been a very important symbol of human enlightenment, resurrection, eternal life, and regeneration. And their scales form interlocking spirals that almost always correspond to consecutive Fibonacci numbers, and so they grow following what's called the golden spiral. There's some images on this slide, and apart from the obvious pine cone, the one in the middle there is the staff of Osiris, linked to ancient Egypt, Assyrian and Greco-Roman traditions. But also this symbolism of the pine cone is still being used, because that other image of the huge pine cone is a sculpture that's found at the Vatican. So how are these higher centers related to the pine cone? Well, the pineal gland has long been represented by a pine cone because of its shape. And that's the same with the womb, which also has a conical shape. But also with the womb, it's because female pine cones act as the reproductive womb of conifers, holding, protecting, and nourishing the ovules on their scales, which develop into seeds. Now, the heart has also been associated with the pine cone because of its shape. Okay. So, sorry, just come back to this slide for a minute. What I want to talk about now is, what is the purpose of these higher centers? Well, the purpose is to connect to source. And there is a more male way of connecting to source, which is through insight and intuition. And I say this is a more male way because it has more action to it. It's about seeking. It's a seeking process. Then we have a more female way of connecting to source, which is connection through subtle sensations and being in contact with nature. And this is more female because it's less about action and more about sinking in. It's about immersion and allowing. And then we have the heart's way of connecting to source, which again incorporates both the more male aspect of using insight and intuition and the more allowing female aspect, it brings those two together. And this is what we would think of as direct spiritual connection. That is what we can do by accessing the higher center of our heart. So we're really getting into we're coming up to 8 fairly soon, so I'm going to move along quite quickly. But we're really now getting into the deep mysticism surrounding the purpose of the heart. Information that I've already mentioned has been hidden for a long time. So in ancient pagan times, before religion as we know it today, there were many mystery schools. Much of the wisdom taught in these schools is thought to have originated in old in Egypt, when it was still green and fertile, and before the rise of the Egyptian dynasties. Within these mystery schools, the truth of the heart was only revealed to adepts once they reached an advanced level of understanding. And until that time, they were taught that it was actually the head or the brain that was the superior part of the body. So this information was held back until the adepts, the students, were ready for it. But throughout history, there have been those who have suppressed this information for more dishonorable reasons. They haven't wanted the average person to realize the power of their heart, because when we understand the true nature, the true power of our hearts, we can no longer be controlled. And so, with the heart's truths hidden, the common belief for some time now has been that the brain is the most important part of the body, the controller of the body. And in general, we tend to worship that which is at the top. For example, we get down on our knees to worship God, who is supposedly up there in heaven. And we put people on pedestals. We strive to climb the ladder of success, and we live by that motto, onwards and upwards. But what if this idea that the highest is the best is actually false? And now I'm going to read you a quote by the great occultist Manly Hall, taken from his most famous book, The Secret Teaching of All Ages. And this relates to a truth that is as old as time, but has largely been forgotten. While that which is above is generally considered superior in dignity and power, in reality, that which is in the center is superior and anterior to both that which is said to be above and that which is said to be below. So let you take a moment to absorb that. So I want to return to the circumpunct as we get deeper into the idea of the heart as the human creation point. We live in a holographic world, something that the ancients knew and science is increasingly confirming. In this holographic reality, the microcosm and macrocosm reflect one another, and the circumpunct is a representation of large, medium, and small-scale entities, not only God, but the universe, an individual man, and a single cell. The creation point at the core of each of these, the sun, the heart, and the nucleus, contain within them the spark of creation or intention. Not only does the heart exist as a creation point in man, but again, as a holographic reflection, it contains its own central creation point. And very interestingly, old illustrations of the heart were shown with a dot at their center. A boundary line encircling empty space, usually creating the shape of an inverted pine cone, represented the heart, and there at the center was either a square or round dot. Now, the meaning of this dot has puzzled contemporary historians, but a detailed text accompanying an image of the heart that came from a medieval anatomical plate provides the key. This text read, "One of the two plates showing the circulation of the blood contains a heart with not a round but a square core, which the Latin text describes as a black grain inside the heart in which the spirit resides." And this makes sense, as the spark of creation or intention is really just another way of saying life force or spirit. So, a black grain at the core of the heart. And a grain, as we know, is also a seed. And we'll see the relevance of that as we now take a deeper look at the heart chakra. The heart chakra, known in Sanskrit as Anahata, is associated with the color green and is symbolized by a 12-petaled lotus, which is within which is a 6-pointed star, or the hexagram that we saw earlier, so those two intersecting triangles. And then within that hexagram is the Sanskrit syllable for seed. So you start to see the relationships and the deep understanding that runs through all different cultures from very ancient times. So the heart chakra is, as I say, associated with the color green and also with the emotions love and compassion. Its name means sound produced without touching two parts, and also pure or stainless. And this name signifies the state of freshness that appears when we are able to stand at a boundary point between two states and to look at the different and apparently contradictory experiences of life with a sense of openness. In other words, it's about recognizing and accepting both sides of the duality, but then drawing them together, connecting and integrating them. So this is the chakra of the everyday aspect of our heart wisdom center. But there is another chakra associated with the heart. So this is one of the other chakras that I mentioned. We talked about the 7 primary ones. This is sometimes known as the 8th chakra. It is also known as the higher heart or the thymus chakra. And this relates to the higher wisdom center of the heart, the central point of the heart that we've been speaking about. It's located between the heart and the throat chakra. And it's associated with the color turquoise and sometimes also with the color pink. And this chakra is associated with pure, unconditional love, the love that we receive from Source. And as we've been saying, this is the point at which we connect with Source. Now, if you combine the colors pink and turquoise or pale blue, you get violet. And so perhaps this relates to the violet flame that mystics have spoken about as existing at the center of the heart, violet being the color of spiritual transformation. And so this is another quote from Madame Blavatsky, founder of the Theosophical Society. "In the heart is a spot which is the last to die, a spot marked by a tiny violet light. That is the seat of life, the center of all, Brahma, the first spot that lives in the fetus and the last that dies." And the heart really is the first organ to develop and function in an embryo, beginning to beat and pump blood around day 21 of gestation. It's also the last organ to die, and while the brain, specifically the brainstem, is often cited as the final organ to cease function, the heart is frequently the last major organ to stop its mechanical, life-sustaining activity, often continuing with the pulseless electrical activity for several minutes after breathing stops. And clinical death has always been regarded as the moment at which the heart stops beating. This is another quote that I wanted to read to you that comes from the Bible. Above all else, guard your heart, for it is the wellspring of life. Life comes in through the heart and it exits through the heart. It is the portal for life force. It is our human creation point. So we've discussed much about the central role of the heart tonight, but there's something so important left to say. And while I've said a couple of times that the heart is the place where we connect with Source, the deeper truth, the truth that has been so carefully kept from you, but that it is found at the heart of all spiritual faith, if you dig deep enough into the esoteric roots of all religions and all faiths, this truth is to be found there. And it is that Source or God lives within us. So Source doesn't exist outside of ourselves, which has been the teaching in recent centuries from our main religions. And it doesn't come and visit, meeting us there. In fact, it lives there within our very core. Our heart is its home. And this was the true teaching of Jesus Christ. And whether you believe he was a real person or not actually doesn't matter. The teaching is what matters. And the return of the understanding of Christ consciousness, often described as unity consciousness, where an individual recognizes their divine nature and oneness with God. And this return of the Christ consciousness is happening now on this planet. And that is why the heart is having its renaissance at this time. And this is a quote that's been recorded of Jesus Christ speaking to his disciples. And he said, "Very truly, I tell you, whoever believes in me will do the works I have been doing, and they will do even greater things than these." As we know, Jesus did amazing things. He could create things out of nothing, and he could heal people from the most devastating illnesses. So I ask you to reflect, what if we had those same powers within us? Learning to recognize our divinity is not something that happens overnight. It is, I believe, our life's work, probably the work of many, many lifetimes. But it's something so worth spending our time and working on. And what we need to remember is that the way we do this is by working with and connecting to our hearts. As we do this, we will start to also heal and create in magical ways. And so, as we come to the end of this presentation, I did just want to give you something a little bit practical, because I've talked a lot this evening. I've talked about the theory, I've talked about the ancient wisdom and the understandings that we are coming back to light after being lost for so long. And all of that is interesting, but how can we bring this into our own everyday lives? How can we use this information and let it transform us? So, excuse me, I wanted to give you just a few very practical things that we can all do to start working with our hearts. There's many other things, but these I think are very easy and powerful. The first thing I would say and would encourage all of you to do, and I talk about this all the time, is to make time and space in your day, every day, to connect with your heart. You can spend a long time doing this if you're lucky to have the luxury of lots of time, or you can spend just 1 minute. It's all very, very important and very powerful. And what I would suggest is that you get still and quiet, and you may want to settle in and go into a meditative state if you have that time. But if not, you can just spend a few moments wherever you are, doing the washing up or sitting at your desk, to just take a step back, to get still and quiet, to close your eyes, deepen your breath, and place a hand over your heart chakra and just bring your attention there. And just for a few moments, for a few breaths, focus on your heart. Maybe feel your breath coming in and out of your heart. That is something incredibly powerful. It might sound simple, but every time you do that, you are acknowledging your beautiful heart. And as you get quiet and still, you are opening yourself to receive guidance and insights from Source through your heart. So that's the first thing I would encourage you all to do. Secondly, I would say spend as much time in nature as possible. Mother Earth, this is the feminine aspect of our lives that nourishes us so deeply if we allow it. So connect with nature, connect with the very earth if you can. Get your shoes and socks off and directly put your bare feet on the earth. It's incredible how powerful just connecting with Mother Earth can be. And I would also say, nourish your body, which again represents the female aspect of our whole being. The matter of us is the mother of us. This is the feminine part of us. So honor and nourish your body, but also honor and nourish the male aspect, which is your mind. It's so important when we're working with the heart that we recognize and we honor both the male and female aspects, which, as I keep saying, come together in our heart. Another thing you can do is to put yourselves in the shoes of others and let go of judgment. And this, I'm sure you'll recognize, is very much a teaching that came from Christ. And it's a simple thing that we can do when we're feeling ourselves torn in or drawn in a certain direction, towards one of the extremes in the duality that we see all around us. Bring yourself back to the center, and do that by trying to see another person's point of view. Put yourselves in their shoes, and as best as you can, let go of judgment. Another thing you can do is to send healing, loving thoughts to yourself and others. Always start by making sure you're sending those healing, loving thoughts to yourself regularly. We can't love others until we truly love ourselves. And we've spoken through this group many times about the power of sending love to other people. It is the work of Peter and Claire to measure the impact of sending love to others. which they're doing so amazingly well. And it's a real impact that we have when we send love to others. It changes us and it changes the other person. And then finally, I would say, always, as much as possible, as you move through your day, seek out those things that bring you joy and that you love. It's very easy to focus on the things that aren't going well, the things that are annoying us and causing problems in our life. And we all do that from time to time, and that's fine. But as much as possible, get into the habit of bringing your attention back as often as possible to the things that you love. Seek out the things that make you happy and follow your bliss. So that's just a few little practical tips for you. And I wanted to end this presentation with a quote from one of those teachers that I mentioned at the beginning, Ramana Maharshi, the Indian sage. And he said, "The entire universe is condensed in the body, and the entire body in the heart. Thus, the heart is the nucleus of the whole universe." So when people first read this quote, it can sometimes seem confusing and what does that really mean? But I'm hoping that after hearing my presentation tonight, this makes a little more sense now. The heart is the very core of who we are as humans. It is the epicenter of us. And I'll just quickly share a dream that I had not that long ago, probably about a month ago, where it was one of those dreams, I don't get them often, where it didn't actually feel like a dream. It actually felt like I was downloading some information. And what came through was the idea that when we talk about infinity, that there is no center of infinity, because we're talking about infinite. So there is no need for a center. There is no center. But when we come down into our physical world, we become finite in this body, and so we then have a center, because we're no longer infinite in this body, we are finite, and therefore we have a middle. And what came through to me was this idea that the heart is in this world, I'm not explaining it very well, but the heart in this physical world is our center, and it is our anchor. And that was the key thing that came through, is in this finite body, in this world of duality, we need a center, we need an anchor to hold us steady when life becomes challenging, which it always does. And that is what our heart does for us. It anchors us. And it anchors us between the earth and between the sky, between the feminine, between the masculine, bringing all of that into itself. So yeah, that was just a little thing I thought I'd add at the end there. Okay, so just one final slide. I want to just briefly mention, for those who are new to this group, that we are the Awakening Heart Collective, and that is myself, Peter and Claire, who did the introduction at the beginning, and Louise Livingston, who would normally be with us. We set up this group around 18 months ago, nearly 2 years probably. And the idea, our goal really, is to bring people together to share the secrets and the mysteries and the wonder of the heart, because we do feel that this is the heart's time, that it is having its renaissance, and it's having it because it's so needed. This energy of the heart is so needed in these challenging times. And so we want to spread the word on the heart and to teach others how we can connect to our hearts, and through that, how we can heal ourselves on an individual level and also contribute to global healing. So what we do through the Awakening Heart Collective is to have events around about every 4 to 6 weeks, presentations like this, and they are free of charge. And we we then share them on our YouTube channel. We also have a newsletter. So if you've enjoyed tonight, all I would ask you to do is spread the word on what we're doing. And yes, just spread the word. I'll send you a recording of this presentation tomorrow. And in about a month's time, it will also be uploaded to our YouTube channel. If you're interested in the more practical side of what I've been speaking about tonight, and some of the ways you can live a more heartful life and incorporate the power of the heart in your life, then I am going to be running a few things after Easter. The Healing Heart Circle is going to be back. For those of you who were a part of the Healing Heart Circle and have missed it for the last year or so, that's going to be coming back. And also I'm going to be running a course on the energetic heart. I won't say any more about those now because I want to leave time for questions, but all information on anything I'm doing or anything Claire, Peter and Louise are doing is always included in our newsletter. So I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to apologize again for the awful technological problems at the beginning. But we got there in the end. And so I don't know if anyone has questions. We've got about 10 minutes.
Okay, well, just before, while people are thinking about whether they have anything that they want to ask either directly or through the chat, Liz, may I say thank you so much for that talk. My word, there was so much in it. You know, starting us off with the ancient wisdoms and then taking us through the heart within the chakras, and then the heart brain relationship that's going on, and the source, and ending with those practical tips. Thank you very much. A lot to dwell on there and to take us through the rest of our week. So is there anyone who'd like to ask a question directly? You can put your hands up in the chat or start speaking, and obviously take yourself off mute, and then it will come through. Now, what people are thinking, something that came into my mind, Liz, was I was because there's so much in your talk, I was scribbling down and thinking, where do you go to get your information? I mean, are there some books that you could recommend, or some podcasts that you go back to? And then, of course, there's the work that you have done yourself, speaking to people who are interested in this field. So I wondered whether you could expand a bit on that.
Yes, I was just laughing. I obviously got John Bailo Melchizedek's birth year wrong. I said 1841. It was actually 1941 that he was born. So yeah, he would be looking good if he was 185. He's actually 85. So yeah, so I did mention those teachers at the beginning, and I just eat up information from any of those five wonderful individuals. But there are so many amazing teachers talking about the heart now, and I've talked about the heart in the past. There's so much information. As I have been saying throughout the presentation, a lot has been hidden for a long time, but we are living in a time of truth. And a lot of this information is really coming to light now. So, you know, we can now access the wisdom texts, the most incredible wisdom texts online for free, a lot of them. You know, imagine that, this information that was kept hidden or only available to the elite few is now available on the internet, often for free. So, you know, but that means that there's a huge amount of information out there that anyone who's interested can seek and find, to the point that it can become overwhelming. And often, as I've been researching the heart, there have been times where I've just felt overwhelmed with the amount of information. And, I've thought I'm never going to really make a dent in the amount of information that's out there. So I have got to a point where I have just sort of said to the universe, bring me the information that I most need, because I can never read all of this. I can never absorb all of this. And I am someone with quite an active mind, sometimes to my detriment, that I try and read, endlessly, but that can be exhausting. So I've asked the universe to bring to me the information that I most need. And I believe that really works. And I do have those synchronistic moments where a book will jump out at me in a shop, or, you know, um, or I'll just come across a video that's just perfect for what I need to know at that time. So I really believe that does work, and I'd encourage you to make that same request, because we are living in a world of information overload, and it can be exhausting. And the other thing that I want to say that is really more important than anything is that we can come close to understanding aspects of the heart through information, through learning with our mind and our brain. But really, to really know the heart, it's more about experiencing it. It's more about gnosis rather than knowing, rather than knowledge, sorry. And so that just comes from getting quiet and still, as I mentioned at the end, and just going into our heart and just sitting there. And sometimes not much will happen. It will just feel quiet. But the more we spend time doing that, the more we start to connect to the deep peace that is within our heart. And it's just a sense, it's a feeling.
I think what you're saying is bringing us on really nicely to one of the questions that was in
Ah,
the chat. And
yes.
so it was posted by someone who said sometimes they feel that their heart is open, or sometimes actually it feels more closed. And whether you had some suggestions, because obviously you have that lovely section at the end of your talk with those practical points about what this person should do. Do you just accept the fact that someday that's just the way that you are, or is there something that you could explain a little bit more about, just to open the heart a little each day?
Mm. Yeah. Um, yeah, what I want to say on that is that I don't believe our heart is always meant to be open. I know we talk about opening our heart and connecting with others and how good it is to do that. But I believe that our heart is also here to protect us, and I talked about the anchor. It anchors us and it steadies us and it protects us. And sometimes we need to have the heart to be a little bit closed, because there's maybe things going on outside in our physical reality that would be too traumatic and too damaging if we were to absorb all of that. So I think that's the first thing to say, is that sometimes our heart needs to be a little bit closed. Um, and I think gradually over time, as we work with the heart, we can learn to have it open more often. And that is definitely a good thing, because then that allows us to really connect with the hearts of others. Um, so I'm looking at that question that comes from Joanne. Thank you. I would say, if you're feeling that your heart's closed and you want to open it more, and you feel that that's something that would be good for you, then I would say that maybe one of the best ways we can open our heart is just to tune in, go into our heart, as I said, in that quiet, still place, and tune into those things that we love, whether it's people, places, animals, nature. Just by connecting to those things that we love and bringing them into our heart, then that opens our heart. And we are bombarded by horrible images on the news and horrible things happening in the world that can cause us to shut down in a negative way and become too close-hearted. And sometimes we can't avoid those difficult experiences. But the other thing I would say to protect ourselves and avoid us shutting down is to distance yourself as much as you can from that horrible news. It's not necessary to every day tune into the news. I know some people think, oh, but I need to know what's going on in the world. Well, do you every day need to know what's going on? If you want to have an awareness, you can tune in sometimes, but I would say distance yourself because that is very difficult for the heart to deal with all the time.
So are you saying, Liz, that really a closed heart might be that actually you understand that you need to protect your heart at that moment, and because we all have times where we need to protect ourselves as well as protecting others. We're coming
Yes, I
to
would.
the last few questions, and another comment saying being grateful is another good way to open the heart in a safe way. You
Yes,
know, that
definitely.
I think that is gratitude. What a really
Yeah,
super way of
yeah.
ending our
Yes, and
talk
it's
today.
very similar to what I was saying. As you tune into what you love, you are feeling the joy around that, and that's yes, and you can feel grateful for that. I think that is absolutely
Yeah.
spot on.
And I think, at the moment it's easy, as you said, particularly if you're drawn into the news, to see everything that's going wrong. But actually, we all have things in our life that we'd be grateful for. Not least your talk today. Thank you once again, Liz. Thank you very much, everybody who's listened to Liz's talk, whether you've joined us this evening or whether you're watching it again through the recording. Thank you very much. Liz, you ended your talk by saying the heart is the anchor, and what a lovely thought that is, and I think that's something that unites us all here. So well done, thank you,
Mm.
and we appreciate the time that everyone's taken to be with us. So
Thank
look
you. I'm
forward.
going to stop recording and